Wake up, Commanders Nation. What if I told you a Hall of Famer is leading your defense and no one's celebrating it? Now, look at the front office. They just made a mistake that might cost us the season by letting a star safety go. To save pennies? But the worst is yet to come. Imagine the architect of your offensive line demanding another massive contract. Or jumping ship when the QB is a rookie. I'm talking about 3 decisions. One is a risky play, another a multi-million-dollar bet. But there's one that could either save or bury this project. You don't believe me? RIGHT, stick around. Because when you find out who wants to leave, who left us in ruins, and who's asking for more money than Jeff Bezos, you're going to RUSH to subscribe. Turn on the notifications or you'll be haunted by this mystery all season long. Let's start with something many aren't talking about but should concern you. Bobby Vagner, our veteran linebacker, is entering his 14th season in the NFL. The man is 35 and on a 1-year deal with us. And guess what? Experts are already speculating whether this will be his final season. But here's the interesting part, and this is where Tyler Sullivan from CBS Sports gives us a perspective nitrogen monoxide 1 is considering. Vagner isn't thinking about retiring after 2025. In fact, Sullivan thinks the veteran still has gas in the tank and might stay at least one more season with Dan Quinn. Why is this so important? Because after reaching the NFC Championship last year, Vagner saw something special in this organization. This man has been on winning teams. He was in Seattle when they were dominant. He's seen what it takes to win in this league. And when someone of his caliber decides to stay in Washington, that tells you everything you need to know about this franchise's direction. Vagner re-signed with us, but only for a year. That initially worried me because I thought maybe he didn't believe in the long-term project. But now I understand the strategy. The man wants to see if we can truly take this to the next level. And if we do, if we reach a Super Bowl or even win it, then he's going to want to stay for more. Look, when Vagner came here last year, many thought he was just a veteran looking for one last paycheck. But I saw something different. I saw a player who still had hunger. I saw someone who understood exactly what Dan Quinn was trying to build here. And the results speak for themselves. Vagner led our defense in tackles last year. But more important than the stats was his leadership in the locker room. When you have young linebackers like Frankie Louvu and Dante Fowler Jr. learning from a Hall of Famer, it changes the whole defensive culture. And here's what excites me. Sullivan says Vagner might stay with Quinn for at least one more season beyond 2025. That means we're talking about having a Hall of Famer in our defense until he's 37. Do you realize what that means for the development of our young players? But we also have to be realistic. Wagner's going to turn 35 this season. His body has endured a beating over 14 years in this league. And even though Sullivan says he has fuel in the tank, we as an organization have to be prepared for the future without him. But you know what tells me that Vagner wants to stay? That Quinn has created something special here. That veteran players see a real chance at winning a championship. And when you have a linebacker of his caliber believing in your vision, that's when you know you've built something solid. Vagner reports to training camp on July 22nd, and I believe he's going to have a spectacular season. Because when a veteran of his caliber decides to stay, it's not just for the money. It's because he sees a real chance to add another ring to his collection. And if we win the Super Bowl this year, can you imagine a more perfect way for Vagner to end his career? Although, according to Sullivan, not even that would make him retire immediately. But that is nothing compared to what's coming. Because now we have to talk about a decision Adam Peters made that I think will haunt us all season. Jeremy Chinn, our safety, who was absolutely dominant last year, is no longer here. And let me tell you why this might be Peters' first real mistake since arriving. Chinn had an incredible season with us in 2024. After his time in Carolina had gotten stale and his career seemed stalled, he came here and completely reignited his game. He became an integral part of our defensive strategy. formed a devastating duo with Quan Martin in the secondary that had rival quarterbacks completely baffled. And you know what Peters did? He let him go to Las Vegas for 2 years and $6.25 million. $12.5 million guaranteed, with a signing bonus of $4 million. You know what? That money was totally manageable for us. We're not talking $20 million a year. We're not talking all-pro money. We're talking about a completely reasonable contract for a 26-year-old safety who just had the best season of his career, but Peters decided it wasn't worth it. And he replaced him with Will Harris, who's much cheaper, but does not have the same explosiveness, the same coverage, nor the same turnover capability that Chin had. Here's my issue with this decision. Peters has shown he's not afraid to spend money when needed. He spent money in free agency, made costly trades. But when the time came to retain one of our best defensive players, he suddenly became conservative. Do you remember how Chin played last year? The man was everywhere. He could play near the line of scrimmage like a linebacker. He could cover slot receivers. He could play deep safety. That versatility was invaluable to our defense. And now that versatility is in Las Vegas, where the Raiders are absolutely thrilled with their investment. And here's what bothers me the most. Most fans thought Chin would be re-signed. Everyone expected it to happen. Because when you have a 26-year-old player in their prime who fits perfectly into your system, you keep them, especially when the price is not prohibitive. Dean Jones from Rigo's Rag put it perfectly. This could be something Peters regrets when all is said and done. And I completely agree, because Peters has had a perfect track record so far. He's made tough decisions, but they've all worked out. This could be the first one that DOESN . Look, Peters has earned our trust after turning this team from the division's worst to contenders in record time. He ran out players like Ron Rivera's draft picks like they were old socks. He's not afraid of making tough calls. But defensive improvements are going to be key to our chances in 2025. When I look at Will Harris, I see a solid player. I see someone who can get the job done. But I don't see the explosiveness that Chin had. I don't see the ability to create big plays. I don't see the versatility that allowed us to use unique defensive schemes. Harris is cheaper, yes. But in a league where differences are minimal, where every player counts, do we really want to be saving money in key positions? Especially when we're talking about protecting Jaden Daniels and giving him the best defense possible. And here's what worries me more. If Harris can't fill those shoes when important games start, we're going to be regretting this decision all year. Because Chin wasn't just a good player. He was a great player who was getting better every week. The Raiders signed him for a reason. They saw what we saw, a versatile young safety in his prime who can change the game. And if he has an all-pro season in Las Vegas while we're struggling in the secondary, that's going to be a very tough pill to swallow. And just when you thought we were done, here comes the really crazy stuff. Laremy Tonsel, our $75 million left tackle we just acquired in a trade with Houston, is already positioning himself for another massive contract. And this, my friends, is what's going to define Jaden Daniels' future in this league. Bill Barnwell from ESPN just included Tonsel in the NFL Bag Hall of Fame. Do you know what that means? That this man is an absolute master at pulling money from organizations. And the way he does it is brilliant from his perspective, but costly from the team's. Let me explain how Tunsel's business works. When he was in Houston with a year left on his contract in 2023, and with the Texans wanting to protect their long-term quarterback C.J. Stroud, Tonsel negotiated a 3-year, $75 million extension that practically guaranteed $60 million at signing. But here's the genius trick. He positioned himself to hit free agency at 32, which is still within peak time for NFL tackles. After just 2 years, the Texans traded him to us for a couple of draft picks, clearly aiming at him as our long-term left tackle to protect Jaden Daniels. And now, With 2 years and $42.7 million left on his current contract, guess what he can do again? He can sign another extension because we implicitly committed to him when we made the trade. This will be his third significant extension thanks to the fantastic deal he negotiated with the Texans several regimes back. Do you realize how brilliant this is from Tonsel's perspective? The man has turned being an elite tackle into a money-making machine, and now he's in a position to do it for the third time, this time with us. But here's the million-dollar question. Should we pay him? And I think the answer is yes, but with conditions. Because when you have a franchise quarterback like Jayden Daniels, you cannot skimp on protection. We've seen what happens when teams don't invest in the offensive line. Look at what happened with Joe Burrow in Cincinnati. The man is an incredible quarterback, but when he didn't have protection, he was taking constant hits. His development was affected. His confidence was affected. And Cincinnati had to learn the hard way that protecting your quarterback is the most important thing. On the opposite side, look at how Buffalo protects Josh Allen. Look at how Philadelphia protected Jalen Hurts when they made the Super Bowl. Look at how Kansas City always makes sure Patrick Mahomes has time in the pocket. The difference is obvious. Tonsel is going to turn 32, which is still peak time for a tackle in the NFL. We're not talking about a player in decline. We're talking about one of the best left tackles in the league who's in his prime. And if he can have a good season protecting Daniels' blind side, he's going to find himself in familiar territory, pulling another massive check. But here's my concern. How much is it going to cost? Because we're talking about Tonsel likely asking for more than $25 million a year. The best left tackles are earning that or more. And with the salary cap moving as it does, we have to ask ourselves if we can afford that luxury. The Texans gave him to us for a couple of draft picks, clearly knowing we needed to protect our sensational quarterback. They understood that when you have Jayden Daniels, you can't let him get touched. And now we have to decide if we're willing to pay the price to maintain that protection. But you know what? I think it's worth it. Because we've seen what happens when young quarterbacks don't have protection. They break mentally and physically. David Carr in Houston, Andrew Luck in Indianapolis, even Tom Brady when he didn't have protection in Tampa Bay initially. Tonsel reports to training camp on July 22nd, same as Vagner. And I believe he's going to have a dominant season. Because when a veteran of his caliber sees a young quarterback with Daniels' talent, he knows he's in a position to win big things. And when you're in a position to win, you play at your highest level. But do you think Peters is going to open the checkbook again? Because after spending so much in free agency, after making costly trades, the salary cap is going to be tight. And if Tonsel has an all-pro season, he'll be asking for Josh Allen money, Patrick Mahomes protection money. Here's what excites me. Tonsel isn't just a left tackle. He's a leader on the offensive line. He's someone who can help develop our young lineman. He's someone who understands what it takes to protect a franchise quarterback. And those leadership qualities are as valuable as his blocking ability. But we also need to be realistic about the numbers. If Tonsel wants 27, 28, 30 million a year, can we afford that while still building a complete team around Daniels? Because it doesn't help to have the best left tackle in the league if we can't afford receivers, running backs, or defensive players. At the end of the day, these three decisions are going to define our season and our future. Vagner wants to stay because he sees something special in this organization. Chin left because Peters didn't want to pay, and that might cost us on the field. And Tonsel is in a position to get another massive contract if he protects Daniels well. Which of these decisions will have the most impact? I think Tonsel's is the most critical, because without protection, no matter how talented Daniels is, and without Daniels developing properly, no matter how strong our defense is, Peters has proven he knows what he's doing. He has completely transformed this franchise. But these decisions will show if he truly understands what we need to win a championship. Are we willing to pay for excellence? Or are we going to skimp in the wrong places? I want to know what you all think. Do you think Peters made a mistake letting Chin go? Should this organization pay whatever it takes to keep Tonsel? And can Vagner really give us another season at the level we need? Because this is what excites me about being a Commanders fan in 2025. We finally have an organization making tough decisions. They're not always going to be perfect, but at least they're thinking long-term. And after decades of incompetence, that's refreshing. Leave your comments below. Tell us what you think about these 3 stories. Which one worries you the most? Which one excites you the most? Because this community is a family, and I need to know what's going through your minds. If you agree that Peter should have kept Chin, give a like. If you think Tonsel deserves another big contract, subscribe. And if you think Vagner is going to have a spectacular season, share this video. Because at the end of the day, we all want the same thing, to see our Commanders lift that Lombardi trophy. And these decisions are going to determine if that happens this year or if we have to wait longer.